Welcome to the Living Out Loud show with Michelle Wadley and Alan Vukas. In each episode, we will explore practical spirituality through inspiring and enlightening conversations. Be a part of our weekly conversation with a rotating cast of speakers, teachers, and authors as we uncover and share spiritual, mental, and emotional tools to help you live your authentic life out loud now. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Living Out Loud show. I'm Alan Vukas.
And I'm Michelle Wadley with another episode of our weekly live stream. I'm so glad you're here with us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, so good to see you, Michelle.
Good to see you. I love it. You know, we show up as if we haven't seen each other, but the truth is what makes the show juicy is the conversations we have leading up to the show, because life is the spiritual practice. And so in our Living Out Loud podcast that we bring to you here every week, what we're doing is actually we're unpacking these principles in our lives and approaching them together. And then we show up and we get to do that with all of you. So we're happy to have any of you and all of you joining us each and every week. And it's quite the journey. Life is just a beautiful journey. So it's good to be back again.
Oh, and it's also fun. We get to do that too. We get to have some fun, and welcome to each of you who are maybe joining us for the first time. But we are welcoming you here to be part of our conversation about these topics that we're talking about each week. And this month we've been talking about the light within the shadows. Powerful topic, Michelle, right? This is
yeah, absolutely. This is and with some people might look at this like this is not necessarily a spiritual conversation, but the truth is, if it's about your beingness, then it is spiritual in nature. Because I sort of described somewhere that what I forget what someone said was the difference between religion and spirituality, but for me, spirituality is the everyday livingness. So Living Out Loud says to me that we're taking these principles and applying them on a daily basis in every relationship. And every one of us, everyone here, everyone listening gets to make a difference and an impact in the world when you start looking at and applying the spiritual principles of health, emotional health, physical health, your own holiness in a different kind of way. So looking at the shadow is really a part of that.
right. And
so you want to catch our audience up on what we've been doing?
Well, I wanted to mention, as far as I was just I'm checking to make sure I was sharing this with my friends. And if you are watching this right now, I would invite you to be a friend. If it's of value to you, share, subscribe, like our Living Out Loud show. You can do it if you're watching us on Facebook or even at our website at livingoutloud.show. You can subscribe there and get notified of upcoming episodes and the show notes, because we talk about a lot of things during each episode, Michelle and I, and books are mentioned. And so we'll include those in the show notes that you can see and listen to again. And so like, subscribe, and be a friend. Share it with your friends. Let them know where you're watching and what you're watching now. We're so grateful for you to do that.
Yes.
But to catch up, so we've been talking about the shadows, and some people don't know what that is. So I guess we could start with, we've given last week with Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman, who's the senior minister at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. And she also wrote the article in this month's Science of Mind magazine that focused on this topic, the light within the shadows. She shared a definition about shadows, and I just wanted to pull that up.
This was a great issue. I mean, the Science of Mind magazine, you can get subscribed, but also you can get it in Barnes and Noble, and I'm not so sure where else, but talk about taking the spiritual and bringing it into the sacred. This magazine and its editor, who is Holly
Holly
Sharp.
Sharp. Yeah.
Um,
Love
Brilliant.
her. Love, love her. She is
She's doing
great.
a brilliant job.
Yes,
Brilliant.
she is. And so I just have the link on the screen right now. This is scienceofmind.com. You can go there. You can subscribe. They even have digital subscriptions available. But this is the May issue that we're referring to, having to do light within the shadows. But a definition uh, that Sunshine Michelle wrote in here around shadows. So those who may be new to this, even this concept, but the shadows of darkness represent the deepest parts of ourselves, those emotions that can yield pain, grief, and sorrow. Many of us learned as children to hide or push away those parts of ourselves in fear of the hurt and agony they might cause. And today in episode 14, we're talking about unlearning our fear of those parts. And so what we've talked so far about is that there are some parts of us that we keep hidden down deep, that we avoid because of what they may bring up or what they represent to us. And today we're going to talk about how to unlearn that fear so it might be a little easier to navigate those
Yeah.
shadows.
And I'd like to give a little bit more about how they get created to someone who might be hearing us for the first time. Because what happens is when something happens, especially in your young life, and you're trying to respond or just survive a challenging situation, it could be as simple as your parents decide to get divorced.
Mm.
And with the percent or the statistics of divorce, there's a lot of that, right? So you're a child, you're unhappy about this, but you also have to get up the next day and go to school.
Right.
So when you get up and just go to school, if no one has really helped you to process those emotions, and most parents are not prepared, not because they're bad parents, just because it's a skill set, right? So you get up the next day and you go to school, and you're on the playground, you're doing your work, you're taking your test, and you're not paying attention during that time because you're trying to survive the
Mm.
feelings, trying to survive them. So that mechanism of trying to survive and then keep going causes you not necessarily to look at, and you start to build very thin layers. So some of the shadows that we create in our lives are the result of a slow buildup of stuff. But because you have to keep functioning in your life.
Yeah.
And so then you don't realize what's built up under there until maybe decades later, all of a sudden what you have are reactions. You have
Mm.
you are repulsed by somebody, or you are driven to be with somebody, and those feelings sometimes that feel overwhelming, that's the shadow at work. That's driving you to or away from someone, something, a situation, and it's when we don't quite know why.
Mm.
And all of that stuff is part of the mechanism of building and being part of the shadow. So
Yeah.
that's that's a quick overview of how some of that gets created. And it's just life being life,
Right. And
right?
and so us, and many of these were formed at younger parts of, as young children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as a result of us coming to conclusions as young children, those conclusions, we continue to act from that space,
Mhm.
even here in our adult life. And
Mhm.
and you you know me, Michelle. I there's I was guilty. My mother used to accuse me of TMI before TMI was a thing. She goes, and I've learned that there is a thing called oversharing, and that is a thing. But just to share my own experience of something that I've recently, even doing this work, we're all on a path of a spiral of our own growth and evolution. So the more you stay in the work, the more you discover. It was Richard Rohr who he said that the more, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like the closer we come into the light, or the more we go to the light, the more aware we become of the shadows.
Mhm.
We become aware. And so as we do our work, then we discover more things. There's more things to discover. But I recently discovered something about myself, that I grew up in a dysfunctional home, which is probably, I should probably say it was normal, because most homes, a lot of families are dysfunctional. So is that dysfunctional, or is that just
Yeah.
normal? And so I grew up in a normal family, and my father, not knowing, he was not highly skilled. He was not highly skilled.
That's our code for didn't know what the heck to do, in case you're
That's
wondering.
right. And so he had at times, he had his version of the truth that was different than ours, especially when he was asking my brother and I, okay, which of you, what happened here? There may have been a mishap, or, okay, what happened? Tell me what happened. Who did it? And then he would follow it up with, if you tell the truth, you won't get in trouble. Now, I don't know about you, but I quickly learned, I learned he was not entirely being truthful in that moment. It was,
The trouble was coming.
that's right. Either way, the degree of trouble might be less.
Right.
As a kid, as a young child, my brother and I, and we've talked about this even as adults, that our version of the truth in response to the answer of his question would change based on the volume of his response to what we were saying, because he already had his idea of what happened.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
Do you see where I'm going? And that, as a child, I learned that it wasn't always safe to speak my truth,
Right.
because I may get in trouble. And the degree of the truth that I share is I'm gauging. And so that, as a shadow, not knowing that, becomes things like that can become an unconscious behavior that keeps us from someone asking you, so what do you think about it? I don't know. When actually I do know. But I
Right, but you
want to
wanna
know what
hide. Right.
I
Yeah.
want to know what you know. And I don't know how many of you listening who may be able to relate to things like that. But those things, if they go unexplored, can
Mm.
keep us from really letting the light that's there, our truth that's wanting to be lived out loud, from even being seen. So there's an example of a shadow. There's an
Yeah, I wanna add something to this too, because 'cause I'm watching this happen. It's so great being a grandmother. It's so great because and while doing this work, because what happens is I have live time, these little beings that I'm watching, and I see the potential of shadows being created before my eyes. And I'm fascinated by the whole process because I don't really understand what got in their way. Like what happened. So for my 7-year-old grandson, who's, oh my God, so precious. But he the other night, when last night my granddaughter had to go get stitches because of a cut. So I was there at his house and his mother was there. I was waiting around to see her. And she said, go brush your teeth. So he came out kind of quickly afterwards, and she did not believe he brushed his teeth. I didn't know at this time because I wasn't paying attention, but I've been through this with him before. And so the moment here's where it gets interesting. The moment she questioned him, he went into this emotional reaction about, why doesn't anybody believe me? I'm talking full tears, real full out reaction. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Because the truth is, I don't think he really did brush his teeth. So, but in the future, he might have this experience, but he might not realize that he helped to create the experience.
Mm,
And that's not
mm,
something that we've really spoken about here, I don't think yet enough, which is our part of the equation.
mm,
How is it that we in avoiding things that we actively created, these things. Because if this doesn't get handled with him, he's going to have this concept. People don't believe me. People don't trust me. And he might not remember it was all about the fact that he used to lie about brushing his teeth.
Mm.
So it's really interesting how we create this. And it's not until decades later that we kind of suffer from it, because at first it's just this awkward experience. But that's again another part of how we create it.
Yeah. And so so I guess if there are parts or areas of our life where we are avoiding, not wanting to look at, there's a gift in those dark areas. The even I was on Sunday at Concordia Center for Spiritual Living in Rhode Island, where I serve at. We were talking about this topic, and there can be repressed emotions, grief that is unexpressed because of a fear that if I somehow tap into that or allow that out, then I will lose control. Well, order does come out of chaos.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if we don't, so we're talking about unlearning our fear of the darkness, releasing the resistance that we have to going in. Because if we don't go into that, allow that chaos, or to just allow ourselves to really feel it and sense it, it's going to come out anyway.
Yeah. It's funny. I just realized, because the example about my grandson would be an example of repressed emotions, because we can't survive always being, if we always felt everything that we could potentially feel, I think we'd be unnerved. I think we would just be unnerved and like crazy, right? So this is how we repress them, because we have to function. And I just realized that example that I gave is an example of having how part of how we avoid is we repress because we depress. We depress them so we can't experience, so we don't experience the pain of them, which is which is also a catalyst. I'm not trying to analyze anyone here, but it's a catalyst for those of us who have then attempted to numb the pain. And we have lots of numbing mechanisms.
Right.
Some of us have healthy numbing mechanisms. Most of us have unhealthy numbing mechanisms. And of course, I'm referring to any kind of substance abuse or there's many ways, but we have these systems in place to avoid. And
denial can keep us from from harmful behaviors and addictions,
right.
that are as a way to distract or numb or keep our attention from that which is wanting to be explored. Then we just numb out, or I was going to say do whatever, and those behaviors, it's coming out sideways. The unexplored chaos will come out anyway.
Yeah, and I talk about dysfunction. You're right, and I think we should probably just call it normal, because the statistics would tell us that we're just one of most. But earlier, about 26, 20, almost 27 years ago ish, we had a real trauma in my life, like a legitimate awful thing that happened. And my middle son was about I guess about 13 at the time, and my younger son was just a baby. He was an infant. Might have been walking around, but he was little. And I just, as I'm listening to you, see, this is what's great about the show. I get to process my stuff publicly, but I get to process my stuff. But I realized that this trauma that happened, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. There was an arrest made. There was ambulances and fire trucks and police, like It was a big deal. And the truth is, I really don't know how that landed in the consciousness or the psyche of either of my sons. I
Mm,
really don't. And I haven't really thought about it enough. And so I say this to any parent or grandparent that's listening: keep your children in conversation.
mm.
Like, let's keep just be willing to engage and ask them about their responses, ask them about their memories, ask them about all the stuff that
Yes,
will absolutely have them know that, oh, it's okay to talk about it.
right,
Because I guarantee a lot of us out there think it's not okay to talk about these things.
right.
And a lot of people are told that, right? You
Yes.
told the story. Did you tell the story, or was it, maybe it was in the Myth of Normal book we're reading? It was in that book. There was this young girl, and she a young age, she had been sexually assaulted, and when she went home to tell her mother was so horrified, she put her in a bath to wash away the evidence and to say, "We'll never talk about this again."
Mm,
So this woman went into her young adulthood with her life not working, but she had basically tamped down that memory so much she didn't remember it. And so when it came up with a fury.
yes.
So some of us are not skilled. We must raise our skill level though as parents and grandparents.
Even just to and even if it's the skill of being quiet to
Yeah.
listen, right? Even
Mhm.
if it's just not telling people, oh, or assuming or projecting how they might feel or must feel. Oh, that felt bad or this, but asking, inviting someone to
Right.
share. How did that make you feel? How do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Even holding that space for someone to be able to explore it themselves, then we're creating a safe space for vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I that is a oh my just my heart goes. I mean, just hearing that story, it is just like that may have caused her to feel bad about herself that I did something wrong. I that it now it needs to be hidden. These
Yeah.
parts of me need to be hidden.
Yeah,
Oh,
and there's so many. Oh, and I'm sorry to bring this up because it's kind of dark, but the fact is I work with lots of people who have had sexual abuse in their life, lots of people. And I love working with them because I've come through that. And I love to look at someone, say, and just really get them to realize that you did not do this. This is not your shame,
right.
because you're right. Those abused often think that they did something to deserve it, and
Mm.
then they carry it and they suffer incessantly until something prods them. And it's very sad. It's very sad, and I wish I didn't know as much about it as I do.
Well, you know
And
what though, but we it's just that we don't talk about it. It's that there are many of us who do know and have from personal experience. I mean, and these are old statistics, but I mean, this was back from more 20 years ago. The statistics were that it was more than 20%, more than
oh,
20%. I think out of girls, and it was like 1 out of 3, and boys 1 out of 5 that were being sexually assaulted in some way. So it's not uncommon. It is more common. It's just not common for us to speak about it and talk about it. And let's just take a breath. you know,
yeah, it's a big subject. It's a big subject, and if I didn't know how, I mean, I probably wouldn't want to even bring it up, but I know how many how many of us are out there. And I'm happy to say I've risen above it. I have done so much forgiveness work and shadow work that it's weird. It's like I can't quite see the evidence hanging on me anymore, but I could find it. I
Mhm.
could find it because I know, even my strained relationships that I've had in the past with men, or part of me, because I also came out of the age of I came up through the 60s and the 70s where women were burning bras and right and becoming independent. But I mistook that. I mistook it. So I wanted to be so independent because I didn't want to need you, because I thought not needing you meant you couldn't hurt me. So
Mm,
this again, this is how we develop our personality types. So I started running in the other direction, and all out of you won't hurt me again.
mhm,
You won't
mhm.
hurt me because you won't have access to me. So look at your lives. Look at your lives, and with an air of practicing real radical honesty, which just means don't lie to yourself. Like look at that and say, wow, what's there? What am I feeling? Where did this come from? And let yourself connect with that stuff, because you're not stuck, but you
Absolutely.
might be unexamined. It might be unexamined.
I want to quote something. This is, I don't have it in our notes. So this was something, though. It was a
Okay.
song I was listening to last week by Wilder Woods, and the name of the song is "Be Yourself." And there was a line that really stood out to me, and I sent it to a group. And the lyric is, "No secret has the power to diminish your worth."
Oh,
I'm going to repeat it. No secret has the
yeah.
power to diminish your worth. So even as we brought up around sexual abuse, or any of the shadows or the stories or whatever the story that is going on,
Mhm.
the shadow cannot overcome the light and the truth and the value of who we are.
Right.
And
Right.
so releasing our fear, or unlearning our fear of examining those areas, is just a quicker way. By us doing that, is so that we can access that and get to the juicy, the good parts, or
Mhm.
unwrap the gifts that are waiting to be discovered. There was one other that I wanted to talk about. So there's some of the shadows, and these are unconscious things, right? Things that we don't want to explore because of what it might bring up. And our prejudices and biases,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
right? I mean, society has given us things, and then for some, the minute you begin, and I know, Michelle, in your work in anti-racism and the work that you do, that the moment that you begin to approach these shields and walls that have been put up to that are hiding feelings and thoughts and ideas and stories that hide behind those things that have been unexamined and unexplored.
Mhm.
We all have them. We have
Yeah.
our prejudices. We have our biases. There
Mhm.
are cognitive biases that they've identified, at least 150 of them, that happen automatically without us even thinking about them. And one, on Sunday, I told everybody that, I said, look to the person to your left, look to the person to your right, and at least 90% of those people that are on either
Mhm.
side of you think that they know more than you do, or that they can at least, they're smarter than you. They can see, you can't everybody can't be above average intelligence. It's not possible, because then where's the average? And where there is,
Right. Right.
but there's a bias within us that causes us to assume, and those unexplored, and I'm not saying that we need to take on something of like, well, I'm average intelligence. We're all brilliant in our own way. But those unexamined prejudices and biases keep us stuck.
All right. I have to
You
offer
do it.
a quick joke. It's from George Carlin. God, I miss that man. I know he got a little heavy at the end of his life, but he once said, by process of elimination, somebody's going to the worst doctor in the world.
Say that again. Go ahead and say it again.
By process of elimination, someone is going to the worst doctor in the world. And I'm laughing because it's about thinking you're smarter than, but yeah,
that's,
it's
that's
the
right.
truth.
That's
By
right.
process of elimination. And I got to tell you something. In all reality, when growing up, I was so painfully insecure. I was insecure just as being a woman, just in general, right? And I'll never forget it. I mean, a jealous, jealous, jealous. I'll always say, God bless my first husband for getting through my early 20s with me. I don't know how he did it. And then I had a healing. I'll talk about that maybe another time, but I'll never forget it because once the healing started to happen, and he was always looking at other women, always. It was just his way, you know. And so I had to get okay with that, right? Because otherwise I'd be in pain all the time. And I'll never forget it. We were in an elevator going up into Carnegie Recital Hall, where my spiritual teacher had an office. They used to have offices that they rented out. And we were going up in this elevator, and this beautiful, I think it was probably Japanese woman. She's beautiful. Oh my God, like that porcelain skin. Oh, just stunning. And she walked in the elevator, and I knew he was like gaga, but I knew it was the first time where I went, oh, she's really beautiful.
Mm.
And it was okay that I wasn't the one. Now, I was never the most beautiful. I mean, of course. I mean, there's some stunning people walking around, but that was one of the ways that I had to place myself and not beat myself up all the time, and not beat myself up. But the jealousy was painful. And there was a lot of shadows there. And I'm aware that some of that came out of the way my mother and father handled questioning and set us up against each other. It comes from all different places. But thank you, God, that I was able to finally get out of that. It was painful to be in my skin. It was not
Mm.
fun being me. And some of you might feel that. You might feel when you go out in the world, if you feel fine and you feel like the world's a good and happy place, God bless you. God bless you. That's a gift. But a lot of you are walking out wanting to survive, wanting to be okay, wanting to be happier than you are. And yet you're just kind of surviving this, the kind of darkness that you're carrying around. And when you clear out this shadow that we're speaking of, Alan, you said it before, all of a sudden you have this vast amount of self-love and self-confidence that you can go and engage the world. It's there. It's there. You can tap into it.
It takes I heard you say is that you said it wasn't easy being in your own skin or being you. And,
Mhm.
I'm going to quote Brene Brown, who she said that only when we're brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light.
Mm. It
And
does take
so with your bravery, then you found you awoke to the light that's in you. I'm going to quote one more, Holmes. Because I love Holmes, but because this is what happens when we're afraid to explore these parts, those repressed emotions, those beliefs that we are assuming to be true about ourselves, the denial of addictions and behaviors, all of that. Ernest Holmes writes, sitting in the shadows, we may not really believe that there is any sunshine, but the
Mhm.
sun would be there all the time. It is there, but we must awaken to it. And so, even with our fear of the dark, we know on a cloudy day, the sun is there behind those clouds. And even when in those places that have been unexplored, the truth is that there is that light that is our authentic self that is calling to us to awaken to it.
It's a type of alchemy that we're talking about. Because when, 1 and 1 equals 2, but you change one part of that equation, the answer must change. And so in your life, if you alter one aspect by choosing or setting the intention on, what is today? Today's Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. If you, the listener, choose today to say, as of today, I'm choosing to love and accept myself more today than ever before in my life, and you do that on a daily basis, there's no way There's no way a year from now your life doesn't change.
That's right.
Set the intention, set the intention, and the path will be shown. The space will open up. The light will blind you, and in a good way, but you have to set the intention. You might
Mm,
not quite know how to get there, but if you just start the process with the intention, the way it sounds like such a Hallmark card, but the way will be made known. It
that's
will.
that's
The
right.
path will be there, and it does sound like I am just reading off of a Facebook post, but that's what happens because you say, "I'm worthy
Mm,
of moving out of this, and I'm choosing not to be afraid of my shadow anymore." And
mhm.
that choice empowers us to do more. It's
Yeah.
it's a bold and it's a brilliant thing for you to do for yourself. Oh
Mm,
my god.
yeah. Thank you, Michelle. I'm sitting here and I'm listening. I'm taking that in and receiving that, except because it's challenging. This work is there's always another. There's always I instead of the layers of the onion, I prefer to think of the ever blooming rose. That there's more petals to be revealed, and so there's more petals that are waiting to be revealed of this light that is within us, and it means releasing some of the old stories, and so if if you don't believe it, if you're sitting here listening to this and it's just sort of like, well, I'm scared, I'm not sure, I'm uncertain, it's like, you know what? Michelle and I believe in you. You are worth it.
Oh my
We,
god.
we are doing this work.
Me cry because the planting these seeds, this is it, all right, it's so important that anyone who can that we plant the seeds of hope in everyone. That we just keep planting, and you're right. I don't like using the onion anymore either. We on Sunday we too were talking about the shadow, and I offered up, and especially this is what my forgiveness course used to be called, but no mud, no lotus, because
Mm,
the beauty of a lotus flower, and you said the rose, the ever blooming rose, right? The thing I love about the lotus, in order for the lotus to be beautiful, it must take the muck because it's grown in like this mucky, muddy kind of conditions. And the most stunning flowers come out of this muck.
yeah.
That's you. That's you. You are that. When you say and you declare on a daily basis, I am willing to face my shadow and love myself like I've never loved myself before, bar nothing. What happens is there's this flower inside of you that will begin to bloom, and you will find it stunning. You will be amazed. You will be amazed how aspects of you just show up over time.
We we have see these places of darkness where we survived them. Or we
Yeah.
are surviving. We have developed skills. This is why investigating them is important, because we have survived. Here we are. We've made it another day, and it may have been struggle and it's hard and it was difficult to get here, but we have grown. That lotus has come out of that muck. Has come out of that muck. And Rebecca Solnit, she writes, "Leave the door open for the unknown, the door into
Mm,
the dark. That's where the most important things come from, where you yourself came from, and where you will go."
yeah.
It's the yin and the yang. It's the all of us, the light within the dark. And if we're denying and holding those parts back, and because we're afraid, fear is understandable. But
Yeah.
there's this lotus that is blooming, waiting to be explored and seen and witnessed.
And I like this. I like the note that you posed that to develop a reverence for the mystery. I
Yeah.
mean, the mystics didn't become mystics by hiding. They became mystics by turning their attention and facing this stuff face on, straight on. That's how the mystics were moved into. And I love the story, so many of the little stories of Saint Teresa of Avila, and she had these rapturous experiences with God. maybe that's not your goal or your desire. Maybe it's just to burst out of your house and no longer worry what you look like. To not worry what someone else is thinking about you or saying about you. Because all of those things, let's tie together a little bit of health, physical body too. All of the things that Alan and I are speaking of, they weigh on your body. It's not just your mind, it's not just your heart. These things have absolute physical impact on your body. And for some of you who are experiencing even depression, it is because you have been carrying the weight of the layers and you have succumbed to the weight of these things, these buildup. All right.
Hmm.
And in addition to that, these things that you avoid, and when you have to try to, because through avoidance, we try to place ourselves only in situations that work, and all of that activity, all of that, those are stressors, folks.
Hmm.
And the stress on the body has physical impact. I
Yes.
mean, it has impact on your brain, on the neural pathways. And now I'm, learning more about the telomeres, and it shortens the telomeres, which shortens your life. It shortens your actual life. So in embracing the shadow and having the courage, and will some things be scary? Yeah, you'll survive. You will.
You made
You
it to here. You made it so far.
Yeah. Like when my granddaughter was crying last night because she didn't want to go have her knee looked at, because I knew full well she was going to need stitches, and she was really really reacting. And I said to her, Lila, you are brave. You've
Mm.
got what it takes. You can do this. Of course, I wasn't going with her to watch it this time. I was taking the grandson. So I could say that with a little bit more ease. But the fact is, we have these qualities. You, the listener, you have what it takes to look inside, to embrace, to integrate, to allow, and then to shed what doesn't serve. You have that. Because as much as we're born with we're born with all the capabilities, but we're not necessarily given a roadmap, which is
Hmm.
where we struggle sometimes. We just, we struggle because no one showed us how to use this brilliant, at all this essence that we have and that we are.
But we do have and listen, while we may not have a book, some believe that they might, that they have something from some revealed text that will give the path forward. We have our internal guidance.
Yeah.
And we can listen and notice to those things that we are resisting and pushing away, that may be coming to the surface, our thoughts and our feelings. Oh, but no, no, no. If we listen to our internal guidance
Mm-hmm.
and have reverence for it, rather than
Mm-hmm.
fear
Yep.
that what is waiting to, you use all about being curiosity, not judgment, but being curious and
Yeah.
interested. And our eyes will become acclimated to those areas that we may not have been able to see. Isn't that what happens if we go
Yeah,
into
I
a
like that.
dark
I like that. I hadn't thought about it like that, but you do. You have. It's like putting on a new set of glasses. You can put on rose-colored. Intentional rose-colored glasses, because if you set the intention, I want to see me. And that affirmation in and of itself can be powerful.
room?
I want to see me. Actually, I choose to see me. And if you affirm that, you will be given the sight to see what the heck has been in the way.
Wow.
Some of you are trying to, like, maybe you've tried to start a new business and you can't quite get going, and you're not feeling the confidence. Well, if that's so, it's possible all the stuff that's underneath that you haven't seen. Yeah, I choose to see me. So when you affirm yourself, you will begin to see what's in the way. And
Mhm.
then you will be shown the path on how to heal it. You
Mm,
know,
that powerful. I choose to see me, making a choice and intention
Yeah.
to explore that, because it can be, you had shared as far as that, our eyes, seeing our light, seeing our brain. If you think about an unborn fetus developing within the womb of its mother, the light, the light may be something that may be too much for the eyes of this unborn. As far as the darkness
Mhm.
is actually a place where this unborn is being nurtured.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
and so for ours, so it's this the reverse. It's like the light may be something that's like, what is this? The too much. And for those parts of us that have been hidden in the dark, or that the light may feel too much,
Yeah.
but the reverse is true as well. Us
Yeah.
that darkness can be a place that is actually a place of nurturing, and where our vulnerable parts have been cared for, and us consciously and intentionally making the choice to see all of us.
Well, and you're spot on, specifically about birth too, because in the 70s is when they finally started changing, fine but slow. The medical world was not quick. They would bring women in, they would put them to sleep, they would shave them, the birth process was awful. And then it was Dr. LeBoyer, and I don't know his whole name, I have to apologize. And he was the one who said, darken the room. You don't have to do anything horrific to the mother, because I won't get graphic here, but what they used to do to prepare a mother to give birth was it was ridiculous. It was
Hmm.
unnatural. So they stopped
Were
doing
men
that.
in charge? Were men doing that?
I wasn't going to do that. You did that. I didn't do that.
Well, you know what? I'll bring
But so he said, slow down the process, and it's where people and I know, because my first birth, that's what we did. The room was dark, and there was music playing, and the baby, when the baby came out, instead of just cutting the cord and whipping the baby away from the mom, they started allowing the umbilical cord to stop pulsating before they cut it, and they'd have skin on skin right away. But it was in a dark, so the baby didn't come out to this loud beat, this white, bright room where they were picked up by their feet and, made you cry. The major cry was to check on
trauma.
the lungs. There was
Yeah.
reason, but they found other ways. But my whole thing is to say to you, you are correct. And the birth process and birthing a child into bright light is a shocking. And we are, and you know what, let's take this further, because the fact is, oh, I got chills, because I know something's right. Some of you, and it goes back to what, and I haven't always bought into Marianne Williamson's quote that you're afraid of your brilliance, or whatever that,
Mm.
however that goes. But I do know that some people are, that some of you are afraid of it, because part of it is you're afraid that you can't hold on to it, or that it won't last, or that you're a fraud. But these are not your truths. You are more than that. You are so much more than that.
Mm.
So taking a risk can be scary. And I saw something today, a quote. It was this a Rinpoche, and he was saying, not everybody likes what I do. And he said, because, sometimes the brighter the light, the more the shadow.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so you might be rejected by trying to believe in yourself, because your self-confidence has the potential, it shouldn't, but it has the potential of intimidating another.
Mm.
And another might say, oh, yeah, you just think you're all that. Well, yeah, I do.
Mm.
But I also believe that in you. And that's the part.
Mm. Mm.
So if you're trying to climb out of your life, don't be surprised if not everybody's going, hey, and high five you.
That's
They
right.
might not. They might want to pull you back down to the comfort of less than.
Mm. But I hear that, and I would to remind, or at least what I'm hearing is living out loud doesn't require me to convince others of who I am. I'm not here to convince anybody, and they may have their own. What was it? Terry Cole Whitaker. I remember hearing that. What other people think of me is none of my business.
Oh, is that her? I never knew who said that, or I don't remember.
She wrote a book. Yeah, that was a book.
Right,
That was
right.
one of my first. When I first started going to a Center for Spiritual Living, there was a copy of the book, and what other people think of me is none of my business. And living out loud doesn't mean that we're here to convince others of our truth necessarily, but it is us convincing ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
and I just don't want anybody. Don't play small because someone can't recognize your light.
Oh, that's
Just
yeah.
keep holding their hand and pull them up with you if you want.
Yeah.
Definitely pull somebody up with you, but don't play small because they can't see it. Don't
Yeah,
do that to yourself.
that's
You deserve more.
right.
You
Misery
deserve.
loves company. Misery loves
Yeah,
company.
yes,
And
yes.
and
I
I
hate
worked on
that statement, but it's true.
it's true. My father was a shrimper, a commercial fisherman like Bubba Gump. And there were times where we were I did my partner Kevin would laugh because I say this I say this line, but I grew up on the back deck of a shrimp boat. and 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 we would collect the blue crabs that during on trips we would collect the crabs and we would throw them in a basket together. And as the crabs, and this is true, and you've heard it as an analogy or metaphor, and because it's true, it's what happens. As crabs would begin to try to climb out of the basket, other crabs would reach up and pull it back in and try to climb on top of them or over them. And so if other people are intimidated by your light and by your brightness, just
Yeah.
remember that they're dealing with their own shadows and their own insecurities and fears. Don't let that stop you from living your authentic life.
Yeah, and I wanna add in there because I feel like we could set you up to judge these people, but have compassion for them.
All right.
Because their light might it just didn't get sparked yet. So they haven't caught that they haven't they haven't caught that flame, that desire to be fully embraced and to be living life out loud. So because of that, they're still believing in their limitations. So let us look at them with love and blessing and compassion, and not with, oh, they're trying to keep me down,
Right.
because they're
Yes.
doing it out of their survival. It's their shadow. It's their
Mhm.
shadow.
And
Which is
some of them, it may be out of a genuine concern and love for
it's
you.
true.
From their perspective, and not catching that spark yet, or having
Right,
that perspective that you've developed, they are wanting to keep you safe.
right,
And so we don't want to judge. We'll stay in our own lane. We'll stay in our own lane and do our work. And
right.
Michelle, whoo, I didn't know
Big
where we
stuff.
were going to go in all of this today. I love how these things unfold. And but
I
I
want
just
to read something on the back of the Science Mind magazine, if you don't mind, because I just noticed it's in like
oh,
not
yeah,
even
please
very
do.
bright light, but it's just such a great quote that I want to make sure before we leave people with this. It's another Ernest Holmes quote. Life is ever giving of itself. We must receive, utilize, and extend the gift. Life is ever giving of itself. We must receive, utilize, and extend the gift. I don't know
Mm,
why that really I just think that's a really beautiful idea. And so for me, what that says is that if we stand still long enough in the stillness of our own being, in spirit trying to give of itself, we'll catch it. But we can't catch it if we're hiding, and we can't quite catch it if we're running around in this craziness. The best way to catch it is to be willing to be still a few moments every day, and say once again, I choose to see me.
mm,
Last week I think on the show, oh, I don't know if I shared it last week, but the statements I've been using in teaching this in my community is spirit, excuse me, shadow, show me, shadow, guide me, shadow, grow me, and thank you.
Mm, mm,
So those just, and then you're engaging the shadow, in a powerful way.
right.
And then this way you don't have to be afraid of it. Now you're developing a relationship with aspects of yourself, and you're saying, come on, let's go, come play together, and have a level of enthusiasm for it also.
Thank you. That
And
was
then
in the giving of itself. It is all of it. So there, it isn't that it isn't. There will always be dark. There will always be light. There is night. There is day. In our physical experience, are those polarities, and knowing that it's all within this one, then we can benefit from the
Mhm.
interdependence of it all. And so, oh, this has been powerful. So, Michelle, before we say a word of prayer here to anchor this in, just say, where would someone like to follow you, keep up,
Ah,
and
well, you could always find me on Facebook. Everything about me is Rev Jersey Girl. Planned Happiness Institute is my education 501(c)(3), and of course, I am also at there. I am also at CSL and J, North Jersey, and yeah. But Facebook is the easiest place. Just look for Rev Jersey Girl.
Rev
Everybody
Jersey
knows me that way.
Girl.
Yeah.
And you could find me if to follow me,
Oops,
or
sorry.
so there we go. Um, I'll come
Family.
back to that in just a minute. So yeah, so on Facebook at Rev Alan Vukas, or also you can follow us where I serve at Concordia Center for Spiritual Living. Look at Concordia CSL anything. ConcordiaCSLanything.org.com, on YouTube. Or I do some occasionally writing and sharing of ideas at newthoughtnewlife.com, and you can check out my website there. But for our show, there we go. Subscribe and follow us, and these conversations this has been rich for me and Michelle, and we'd love for you to continue to be part of the conversation. You can go to livingoutloud.show and subscribe there and get our updates, our show notes, some of the things we talked about, the quotes that we shared. Well, they'll be in the show notes. And if you subscribe there, you can get notified of our podcast.
Yeah,
And
and share. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers. We
woohoo!
want we want to get to 1,000 subscribers. I don't remember the date, but before the year is out, we want to get to 1,000 subscribers. So when you share and tell people the support that you have gotten from these conversations, you'll support us in doing the work in even a greater way. So share, share, share.
Yeah, be a friend, and if it's a value to you, share it with your friends. Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. And so, Michelle, I'll be happy to pray today as we close.
Okay.
So let's just anchor this, and just knowing that as we just drop into our hearts here for this moment, this wonderful the activity of spirit that has shown up here by all of the words that have been spoken by each one listening through Michelle and myself. I am just grateful to know that what was that quote? Life is ever giving of itself. Life has given of itself in the most wonderful way here today in this discussion of us learning an appreciation rather than a fear of the dark. And so what I accept and know right now is that this one life, this one mind, this intelligence within each one is guiding and directing them into a greater and deeper relationship with the all of themselves.
Mm.
I accept and know that the consciousness that made each one is active in each one and is able to see each one. And so right here, right now, I accept that eyes are open and ears are opened to see the fullness of the
Mm.
light that we
Mm.
are. That we may see as spirit sees us, that we may see one another as spirit sees and knows. And I just accept that is what is unfolding right here, right now, in each one's experience, because it is already what the divine knows. And so I just enter into agreement with that. And so as I release this into that law, letting love point the way, knowing that law has made it so, just join me in anchoring this truth that there is only one. It is good. It is now. And we know this by saying, and so it is.
And so it is.
Mm.
Thank you, brilliant,
Thank
beautiful
you.
beings of light, for joining us. And please let us know what works for you. What have we said that works for you? Share that with us.
Mm.
Send us an email. You can comment on the Facebook page, because we want to know. There you go. hello@livingoutloud.show. Let us know that. Give us even your testimony about what worked, what came together, what have you been able to utilize, because we're doing this for you. We're
I'm
doing
just
this.
going to, Judy, I just want to acknowledge, because I
Yes,
know you said you were in the 90%, but just that we'll close with this one quote: without the dark, we cannot see the stars.
yes.
So,
And the darker it is, the brighter they shine. That's the beautiful part of it, Judy. You're right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
losing that fear of the darkness. And so we'll see you here next week for next week. Episode 15 is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And so
Love.
that's a perfect quote to lead us, set us up for next week. Thanks, Judy. And
Yeah,
thank you
that's
all.
right.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you here next week.
Thank you. Be well. Bye.